apple pies being more of a Dutch invention or possibly debatably an English one, the saying as American as apple pie has kind of just stuck around. Now I'm going to be talking about pies next week, hopefully. So today I'm going to be talking about apples. Because why are these seen as such an American thing when they're not actually American? So the US was founded by colonists and settlers, and they brought across a lot of seeds with them from the old world, including apple seeds. Funny thing is though, apples, you can't grow apple trees from the seeds. It doesn't work. They'll grow, but they don't make good sweet apples we like to eat. They come super sour and weird usually. They call them spitters because that's what you do after biting into them. Classy. So most of the time they'd plant these seeds and they'd use them to make hard ciders and things. And then later on they'd be able to do grafting and cross-pollination to try and get them into actually edible instead of just drinkable. Enter Johnathan Chapman, aka Johnny Appleseed. Mr. Chapman was born in Massachusetts, probably, and at some point headed out west. He'd plant apple seeds there to give him claim to the land there, and then he'd trade or sell the land or just the seedlings. He'd also sometimes give away the seedlings just if he thought they were needed. Nice guy like that. He was a devout member of a particular Christian sect known as the Swedenborgian or New Church. As part of his devotions, he refused to graft trees as they saw it as harming the plants, and they didn't want to do that. He also refused to harm any living creature. So yeah, I guess he was a vegetarian. But also he wouldn't harm rattlesnakes, mosquitoes, wolves. I mean, good for him and all, but I'm not there yet. If this is the expected behavior, then I'm not there yet. I'm sorry. I'm just not. Nope. Still yet to be convinced that mosquitoes weren't snuck in by the devil during creation. So, Mr. Chapman was a better man than I am, partially because I'm a woman, and he managed to introduce apples to an entire new continent. I mean, talk about ambitions. When people are asking you, if you could dream big, wildest dreams, what would you want to do? How many of us would go, yeah, I'm going to introduce a plant to an entire continent, and it's going to become so prolific that people will forget that it wasn't actually there in the first place. Now, in proper human form, this guy ended up becoming a bit of a folk legend. And I never actually heard most of these stories before, or any of the stories. It was just a name I heard thrown around like Davy Crockett or Paul Bunyan, which I'll have to go over at a later point in time, because those are also some fun stories. Johnny Appleseed, the folk legend, was said to go barefoot all year, which I envy except for on the snowy days, carrying his Bible, sack of seeds, and his cookpot on his head like a hat. Tin cookpot, not iron. I was worried about that the first time I heard it. I was like, people do not put pots on their head, especially back then. Iron pots, way too heavy. No, tin pot, much less neck breaking. And it's a story. Anyway, Johnny Appleseed wore old worn out clothes that he traded from other people after they were, done with them. So other people's cast-offs. And sometimes he was portrayed as wearing old sacks that he just, cut holes in to stick his head through and stuff. Which, fair. He's said to have carried no gun or knife, which, okay, cool, it's a story, but I'm not sure what he's supposed to have been using to make the fences and things for his orchard if he doesn't have a sharp with him. He's also supposed to be a friend to all living things, and he actually gets a mention on the TV tropes page for his portrayal in Disney's Melody Time. This particular story takes on a bit more of a mythical feel, wherein Johnny is urged to go on his adventure west by his guardian angel, who looks a little bit Daniel Boone. And at the end of this story, we learn that, according to the story, this is why the sunrises and sunsets are pink, because Johnny Appleseed's still up planting his trees in heaven, and those are the apple blossoms. In another tale, starring much of his animal friendliness, though not much about the apples, he's said to have found a wolf caught in a trap. He freed the wolf, helped fix it up back to health, because theoretically it would have been injured. And then the wolf just followed him around afterwards as a pet, which is a nice story, and one that I really hope isn't based on a real story, because wolves are dangerous, and if he did that, then whoever bothered to trap the wolf probably isn't very happy about that. In another story, he and his animal friends are supposed to have helped a small town fend off a snake oil salesman by exposing the charlatan's miracle tonic as just being, useless. And he and the town's kids start making gallons of apple juice to keep them healthy instead, because an apple a day keeps the doctor away, which really doesn't make sense modernly because doctors don't make house calls anymore. Anyway, that's the short version of history and some folktales about Johnathan Chapman, aka Johnny Appleseed, the man who spread apples across half a continent.
The Lord's been good to me, and so I thank the Lord for giving me the things I need for sun and an appleseed. Yes, He's been good to me.
The real question is, why don't we see tomatoes as being inherently American? There's a New World food for you. That and maize.